Our next keynote speaker is Dave Walsh. He's a Senior Director of Project Management for Marriott International's select brands in the U.S. and Canada. He's been with Marriott for over 20 years, supporting the design and construction of almost 3,000 hotels. Many in our industry still aren't aware that Marriott International is busy building hotels with wood-framed modules. These are light framing, wood-frame modules. Dave will tell you what led Marriott to this initiative, what their experience has been to date, and what the future holds for Marriott wood-frame modular construction. Please join me in welcoming Dave Walsh.
Thanks, Art. You bet. Good morning, everyone. First, I'd like to say that I think everything's already been said, so I'm done. Wow, Jerry kind of summed up a lot of the learnings that we've experienced in the last year. Is there any way to turn these lights down? This is extremely bright. I can't see. I like to look at who I'm talking to. If there's not, then so be it. So I'll take you on the journey in a second. I wanted to show you a real quick video. This is KTLA in Los Angeles.
Marriott building a hotel in Hawthorne in a unique way. It's using a technique called modular construction. The rooms are being made in Boise, Idaho. Then they're shipped fully furnished to the site. We were there as the crew was stacking them together to finish the job. Turns out those stacking games we played as kids were onto something.
Just because we've been doing it the same way for 50 years doesn't mean that's the way we should go future.
A new Marriott hotel being built in a unique way. Pre-assembled rooms stacked on top of each other.
What kind of background do you look for people that build these? Do you have to Lego background, building blocks as a kid, take the toy?
The rooms are built in Boise, Idaho, then hauled on tractor trailers to this construction site outside Los Angeles.
You will not tell the difference walking into a modular unit versus a site built. The quality we think is actually superior because it needs to withstand the trip down the road.
Crews can stack up to 25 rooms in place a day. Each modular unit is the standard hotel room size of about 12 to 14 feet across.
This is how the room arrives on site. All the walls are complete, the furnishings are in the middle. All the crew has to do is unwrap them and put them in their place.
Once the unit's in place and we're ready to outfit the room, you can send about 4 bodies in and they can set up 10 rooms a day, have them completely finished and ready to accept a guest.
The benefits? Mostly time, thanks to efficiencies in the process. This hotel, with over 350 rooms, can go up in a year. It would take about double that time to build it the standard way.
Ton of work up front in the design phase, but when we go to construction, I mean, this is arguably one of the fastest construction projects going on in the U.S. right now.
Quality is another benefit since rooms are made assembly line style. Plus, guests will notice they're quieter, thanks to double walls between them.
I love our factory, seeing it in the factory, but this really is the fruits of our labor here when we actually see the building go up.
Now, in addition to time and quality, Marriott says there's another benefit to going modular: less environmental waste. Now, they did 50 hotels like this last year. They have 6 modular projects in the works right now, and they hope to do many more. Now, if you want.
Yeah, so that's that was a reporter that from KTLA that came to one of our stacking events. We did with that particular owner. We invite our owners, general contracting community, architecture, design professionals to really come out and see what a full volumetric modular solution is like, kick the tires on it, ask a lot of questions. We had done probably 4 prior to that one. The day that we pulled that one off, we weren't quite sure how many people would show up, and we ended up with about 450 folks, almost too much to give the tours walking around the property. But a very successful project. The first phase of the 220-room courtyard opened last month. The Town Place Suites, which is the 130 on the other side, will open up this month. In fact, either today or tomorrow. So that owner, Brad, is was one of our early adopters in some of our learnings that we bring to our ownership community. And I think you saw his enthusiasm in the video. If you asked him today, is he happy that he did it? Well, heck, he cut his schedule in half. His original schedule was 24 months. He'll have all 350 open in just under 13 months, just over 13 months. We actually met with the city mayor was there for the stacking event to learn more about modular. And I don't think I've ever seen such a happy political figure at a more, other than maybe a ribbon cutting ceremony. She was ecstatic walking through the town. They haven't done much development in Hawthorne in quite some time. So how did we get there? I'll start with a little bit of history with Marriott International for those who don't really know a lot about how many brands we have and how worldwide big we are. When I first started with the company, we were in the 450 to 500 range of hotels. We're clearly way above that now. We have 30 brands since we acquired Starwood a couple years ago. 1.3 million rooms. We do 50 to 60 deals per month is what our average has been for the last 3 to 4 years. Just last week was committee, and I haven't seen the exact numbers yet, but we're still in the probably worldwide per month, we're probably still in the high 40s range. And there's a statistic there. Sorry it's not as pretty as everybody else's slides, but yes, we do open a hotel every 14 hours. And somebody broke it down the other day to seconds, and it's down to like 15 or 16 seconds we open a room. So here's a quick glance at our brands. The select brands are the ones down at the bottom, obviously. The ones that are highlighted in yellow are the ones today that we feel are very volumetric friendly, and I'll talk a little bit more about what we are doing in that space. But holistically, our initiative when we kicked off a couple years ago, the ultimate goal was really to learn more about the modular space and what we could do as a major corporation to kind of help move it along and get it to benefit our franchise community. For those who don't know, our business model, we are 99.9% franchised. We sell to owners that develop and build our hotels. And then we support that process through our brand standards and design guidelines. And the group that I work, 75 folks back in Bethesda, Maryland, support the select group in particular, which has the highest volume of projects by far in our system. And I'll show you those here in a quick second. So a little bit on the journey of modular. Why modular? We were just like everybody else in this room. We were watching the same thing happen in the marketplace. Our owners were coming back and they're saying, hey, the multifamily, the commercial space, since the downturn in 2009, everybody's hot, very busy. The market's incredibly hot. We started to really watch the labor impacts on our timelines of getting these hotels open. Back in 2007, 8, the last uptick in the hospitality industry, we were building a 100-room, 4-story building in about 12 months, 12 to 13 months on average. And the lack of labor after the last downturn is really what started to we saw and heard from our ownership communities that was really killing that timeline. To where we are today, it's probably close to 20 months for a 4-story. I think Michael said 29 months in one of his slides for the average multifamily. Just crazy, crazy numbers. So that really drove us. A little bit more on our pipeline. I'll get back to what we've learned and kind of where we decided and why we decided to target on modular. In our pipeline today, we have plus or minus 1,700. We have 515 as of yesterday under construction. We will open just in North America. These are all just North America numbers. We will open 275 this year. I actually have a bet with some top executives that for $20 that it'll be over that. So hopefully I'll get my $20. I got a lot of pressure on my team. So of the 1,700s, 500 are still under construction. We're starting on average about 20 every month. 680 of those could live in this world, the world of wood space that we are in traditional 4-story today. I'm getting super excited about talking to everybody walking around here and knowing that the codes are going to change in the near future, but hopefully allow us to bring wood into a much more taller building. Those solutions are extremely exciting to us and definitely will be to our owners, I can tell you that. Construction spending. There was a lot of numbers up here holistically about construction spending. I just wanted to paint the picture for hospitality in general. Sorry, I don't have the 2018 up there. Couldn't figure out how to get it on the slide, to be honest, and my assistant couldn't help me either. So we're well over 30 billion already for as far as we are from the official stat keepers. So it's a lot of money. This number, this graph, is actually one of the reasons why, when we looked at the various options that are out there that try to help our owners with a new technology or a new way of thinking of developing their hotels, one of the plateaus, that lower plateau, a lot of folks look at it and they say, wow, 9 billion, it's not that much. What does that really mean? Well, in that 9 billion back in 2010, 2011, we were still cranking 100, and I think we opened 160. It might be a little bit lower than that, don't hold me to it. But projects just in North America, and majority of those were the wood frame. Basically, the urban markets had slowed down dramatically. And so that's just us. So double that quantity of hotels, average 4-story wood frame with a Hilton, put in another 20, 30% for a Hyatt. There are a lot of brands out there that are building hotels in the U.S. So the hotel lodging spend capacity for wood frame and new innovation and modular solutions is I'd like to say it's cycle consistent. You know, whether somebody builds a factory and is concerned about whether hospitality is going to be as cyclical as the multifamily business, we really hope that folks that we've been talking to are doing their diligence and really looking at the market over the long span. And really since, gosh, at least as long as I've been in the business, it's been nothing but up. And the cycle of the older buildings that are now approaching 30 years old and have depreciated, the old Howard Johnsons sitting on those 5-acre sites all over the U.S. are now ripe for redevelopment. And oh, by the way, I can put 3 hotels on those sites today versus the 1 2-story drive-up that we used to build here in the U.S. So pipeline is not a problem in hospitality. Somebody can quote me that. It never will be a hospitality problem. It will slow down at times, but capacity for a new technology in this space, just like the traditional construction, multifamily and commercial, is safe in hospitality. So we started our initiative with these 3 pillars, pretty basic, similar to everybody else: quality, speed, and cost neutral. We have approaching 1,000 owners in our franchise community, and not shocking, all of them are first cost sensitive, right? Like most of us. So we set out to really just try to learn how we could, really what the industry was all about and why, as Jerry said, very, very well, this is not a new technology. It's been around. It's been accelerated and mastered over in Europe. And why it's never taken off here, Jerry made a really good point. It's the perception that it costs too much, that the quality was iffy, and the speed is all determined on how you put a team together. And oh, by the way, we don't build really good teams the way we currently construct. So I tell a lot of folks when I first started this initiative, I would tell them that the first modular projects I was ever involved with were all failures. Everybody kind of went, what do you mean by a failure? And to me, it only meant one thing: intent to return, right? If the owner has no desire to ever do that process again, that's a fail. We had great hotels. They're standing today. They're quiet. The quality's there. Guests don't know anything different. They probably cost a little bit of a premium, but there was little to no time savings, if not a time loss. And these were built, way before the labor crunch that we're currently in right now. So really going into this initiative, that was something that me personally, wanted to kind of target and try to figure out where things were broken. And some of the very, very elementary ideas that are massively flowing around the industry right now is everything that we found. Excuse me, I should have brought my water up here. Jerry, can you throw me that water right there? Oh, okay, one right here. Thank you. So, our journey. Kind of been talking about it a little bit, but here's where we started this initiative. We went to the MBI Institute, and this is an organization based in Virginia. We went out to their conference. In fact, I was supposed to go with Kareem Khalifa, who was leading our global design strategies at the time, and couldn't make it out there. Would have loved to. It was a pretty powerful presentation, I think, to the modular industry about what we really needed and what they hadn't been even considering. And since Kareem has unfortunately left us and now trying to build a massive project in Toronto with somebody else sitting in the audience. And we wish him well. He's a good friend. And he came back and he grabbed me walking down the hallway, gave me the download in 10 minutes and says, okay, you got it? I said, okay, I'll take it. And we ran off to the owners conference. We talked to probably a couple of the manufacturers that came out of the announcement that we were starting this initiative and who wanted to come learn about hospitality from us. And so obviously with an open mind and trying to learn about the modular side of the business as well. We started off with about 10 or 12 vendors, all under NDAs, that was an entertaining experience just to get guys to sign NDAs. And at the end of the day, after talking to 10 different manufacturers, it was like, guys, we're all talking about basic framing technology here. Nothing's a rocket science here in what we're dealing with. But it also helped us shape who we wanted to partner with and who really was going to think out of the box and who was going to step forward and try to lead the industry into a new space. So we ended up with two companies, Gerdon and Champion Commercial Structures. Both have been with us since the start. Both have gone through a little bit of reorg. We brought in some of our top owners that build a lot of hotels with us, owners that have really good in-house design project management teams that have just were itching to do something different. And like in a lot of industries, there's always that first owner, that trailblazer that wants to set the stage for the future. And when we announced our program at our owners conference, within 5-10 minutes we had 3 or 4 owners that said, I want to do modular. I don't care what it costs. I want to put it right beside my other hotel. I want to video it. I want to share it with the world. I want to show how fast it goes. I mean, he knew nothing. But he's got a lot of money, and he's got 2 approved hotels, and he wants to build them. So that was Newcrest Development. They did it in Oklahoma City. Got a great video, him building AC. I'll show you a little picture about it. Picture in a few minutes. And we were off and running. We worked with OTO Development out of Spartanburg, South Carolina, Concord Hospitality, some big names in the industry. And some of the projects I'll show you are the results of some early sessions with those guys, and a lot of circle back and lessons learned that we are in the way of in preparing to share with our ownership and really share with the world what it takes and what these guys have gone through to actually get their projects executed. So today we're ramping up a lot more projects. We've probably got, I don't want to kill the statistics slide in a minute, but there's probably 6 in fabrication throughout. And I know since we've launched our initiative between Hilton, Best Western, Holiday Inn, all the other major brands, a lot of the factories that we've spoken to, we've been to 30, 35 factories, they all have some form of hospitality project going through their factories, which is great news for us. Normally we would try to, I wouldn't even say normally, we went into this initiative thinking that this is really an industry shift that we had to lead, and that we had to take along the entire industry with us. So we're actually very happy that we hear that all the other hospitality companies are taking advantage of it as well. What we're doing internally. So one of the things we learned real quick was that we had to get our prototypes together and break them down and make them easy for the modular companies, for the designers in the room, structural, architectural. If you think, one of the first things we learned was for every 2 inches of dimensional change in a modular hotel, it had to be completely re-engineered. It had to run the calcs again, and obviously that's cost. So one of the first things they said to us is, look, we got to standardize these rooms. We've got to standardize certain elements. So we started breaking down what we could standardize, brand by brand, and approached our brands, told them this is what we got to do to develop hotels and get them open faster so we can start creating more revenue. They looked at us. They argued about a couple points. We pushed back and we gave some alternate solutions, and we're off and running on 5 out of our 10 brands that I showed you earlier. 4 will be, 2 are posted right now as prototype modular sets. We took basically our prototype guidelines set that we provide to the design community ownership to go and build a prototype 4-story wood building. And then we broke it down using our 2 vendors, Gurdon and Champions design teams, to basically build a set of drawings in PDF, CAD. One, the PDF, make it really quick. Does it fit on my greenfield site? Yes, it does. Great. Check the box, start going down another go, no-go list and move on. The other sets, we also produced it in CAD for the architects so they could literally do the same thing but take it with our guideline drawings and mirror the documentation that's more robust on our guidelines. We're finishing up Town Place Suites and Spring Hill Suites this week, hopefully. Well, today's Friday. They should be posted today. If not, it'll be early next week. But we have Courtyard and Fairfield Inn posted right now, and I think we're actually at a ticker on how many times the sets have been downloaded. The Fairfield's been downloaded about 55 times, and I think the Courtyard was close to 60 about 2 weeks ago. So we really feel like the ownership community has been watching this initiative grow. There are some concerns about capacity, which I'll get into. But I could talk a little bit more about that as we kind of move along here. So none of this, I think, is going to be really new to everybody. I think a lot of it was already said. Probably the biggest one on this list, well, actually 2 things that we found as we kind of made our way through over 30 factories. The industry itself is built on HUD housing, trailer type projects. And so the quality of the labor in the actual factories and their skill sets was something that we were really concerned about, because as somebody else said, the perception of modular or offsite construction in the U.S. is one of trailers. Quite honestly, the ownership community has always kind of felt it's been a little bit of a less than. But the labor that was in these factories were not doing certain things that we would necessarily need, or had skills that we would necessarily need for a hospitality project, i.e. vinyl wall covering. We do vinyl walls in our hotels. They don't have vinyl wall covers in the middle of a factory in the middle of the woods in North Carolina. So they had to find somebody who knew how to do wall covering and bring them into the factory and install the wall covering. Same thing in Pennsylvania, same struggle. But what we also found was that the factories were kind of built up, just like Jerry said, kind of a traditional construction method, but just under a cover. And one of the things that we do in hospitality is we cross-train all the time. We want our staff to know exactly what's going on in each one of the departments, and when somebody's out, somebody else can pick up the load for the day, for the week, or whatever. There was really very little cross-training in the resources in most of the factories. The guy who did the drywall has been doing the drywall for 30 years. The guy who's been doing the framing has been doing the framing for 20 years. And to us, that is kind of the same issues that we're seeing in the field, where guys just are coming in to do one thing, get in, get out, and they were jumping from project to project, and that's what was causing a lot of the industry creep. So really having robust conversations with modular general managers, factory managers who are all about the production line, just similar to an automobile, really turned quickly into the human capital side and what are they doing to actually bring in the resources that we can't get in the field, but how are they getting them in the factory? We were at the point where on a couple of the tours, and I expect to get taken up on it, is that we would be willing to go back and actually talk to their core group, the labor community, and even the local schools and trade industries that were around and the factory itself, and try to get them to understand that, hey, the factory's kind of changing their mindset. They're bringing automation in, they're bringing a different type of product in. It might be a good place to come and work. So we hope we can make some more headway in that in 2019. FF&E, nobody ever would finish these HUD housing units or even the multifamilies traditionally outside of a paint finish with full furniture. FF&E is furniture, fixtures, and equipment, industry term for hospitality. We went into this saying we got to take advantage of exactly what is one of the challenges in site-built construction, is getting all the way through the end of site-built. Then the owner brings in his FF&E, and the FF&E team starts dinging and banging up walls, and the finger pointing starts. So we were hoping that we could leverage the modular solution to really take care of one of our closeout challenges of a typical hotel. Met a little bit of resistance on it, but once we got kind of the first couple underway, the guys that are in our program say, nope, it's the only way we want to do it. We want to deliver a finished product as well. So they built their processes, they expanded their factory where they needed to, they reshuffled their existing square footage to make it happen. And so far it's worked pretty well. So specifically to hospitality, these were basically the sum of everything. As we're talking to owners, where the perception of modular, what does it mean? The constant demand for custom solutions in hospitality. If you think about the entrepreneurial spirit that's out there in hospitality, the hotels that we build, they're very creative. The design solutions from the architecture all the way through the interior design really make a statement. The owners that are in hospitality want to make a statement, whether it's for their family, their market, and they're constantly up against each other. Every time you build a hotel, somebody's building a newer one, down the street, and it looks a little bit different. The brands change the direction for all of you guys who are our guests. Every 7 years, 5 to 7 years, so we have to refresh the hotels so you guys make the purchase decision to stay in our hotel versus the one down the street. So that drive for custom solution was another mindset that we had to say, well, you can still get that customization, but we're going to standardize some elements that really don't need to be customization, and we'll convince you of that. So we're well into that 2-3 years later, and I think with the modular plans that we've developed, those have really helped kind of break that perception and kind of drive the customization needs where it really needs to be versus, say, the room itself. Heightened risk for off-site suppliers. Anytime you tell somebody that 60% of their building is going to be built off-site, including the lender community down at the bottom, it's a little scary from the norm versus, say, just the panels that Jerry's used to. That's a huge financial commitment. The S-curve completely changes. You're looking for funds way earlier than you traditionally do in traditional construction. So that took a lot of head scratching. How are we going to get folks over that? So we said, why don't we do a lender event out at the factory? So we invited all the top 50 lenders that we deal with across the country. Gave them a great presentation, introduced them, walked them around, kicked the tires. Half of them were gone in about 2 hours. We followed up. Hey, where you got? We got it. We got it. We see where you're going. We understand it. And half the guys just realized that it's not their time. And trust me, we've got some guys that are still putting a lot of pressure on them. But the industry itself has started to educate itself, and we've got some really good champions out there in the marketplace that are helping other lenders see through the fog and the mystery of modular. So any project right now that's kind of moving forward, the lending side of it, as soon as it hits a roadblock, we've got quite a few folks that are getting on the phone and saying, what's the challenge? How can we help you get through that challenge and get this project moving? So standardization across the rooms itself, I think I talked about that a little bit with the dimensions, was what we're really focused on now. We think we can do probably 2 or 3 other brands as well. Some of our extended stay brands have a little bit too big of a room, but of course there are top performers out in the marketplace. Our owners are constantly hammering us, can we do a modular, can we do a modular? So we started to open up our thought process there for the right site, right location. We'd entertain it, and we've got buy-in all the way up. So how do we move forward? I think these are all going to be kind of rinse and repeat commentary from Jerry and Michael. I have to say I thought it was my brilliant idea, but apparently somebody beat me to it a couple years ago. Sorry I can't recall the gentleman's presentation yesterday, but there's a website out there that he described called HEAL, H-E-A-L. And it sounds like exactly what we would like to do at the end of the day, is create an open source environment for sharing and break down these barriers of education and get everybody kind of seeing the same bit of information. Maybe not on the technical side, on the how-tos, but more on the lessons learned side. So the apprehension in the design community, the apprehension in the construction industry. Where's my margin? How am I going to keep my margins? Do I keep my guys busy? Those days of slowly, the conversation has changed in the last 3 years. I have more general contractors calling me in partnerships with modular companies, which is what we were really pushing 2-3 years ago. Do you know your general contractor community? So it's like music in my ears that I'm hearing that these guys are partnering and going and doing that upfront design development and coordination with the architect, and they're really starting to build really strong teams. So it's exciting. But since we kind of started this thing, we feel like we need to start publishing what we're learning and let everybody learn from it. So we were talking to Evan. Next week we'll be in Boston with Evan and Ryan Smith. And part of the discussion is how we move this this shared learning platform and what it looks like and how it's managed forward. If we don't get some real good consensus soon, we'll probably just start posting it out for our owners at least, and then the owners will start sharing it with the design and construction community, I'm sure. Demand in the government for government education. We learned one of the first questions I think most owners ask is, well, how do the states react to modular? What are some of the barriers to modular? We quickly, spent a lot of time with MBI and learned about the modular standards. There's an actual modular code in the majority of the states these days, which was really good news for us. It has to be tweaked. It'll be updated probably with the new IBC coming. But where we were really trying to focus was on the transportation side. Obviously, we're shipping boxes across state lines in many cases. And are there any states that are more cost prohibitive than other states? So we found a few. We really challenged and pushed MBI to hire a government affairs individual, which he's now got on board. And they're teaming up actually with the government affairs folks with Katera to do the same thing, to try to drive that government education throughout. Collaborate with owners. So go, no-go evaluations. One of the first lessons learned we brought in for one of the projects I'll show you. We brought the entire project team down to our innovation lab down in our basement in Bethesda. We spent 2 days together, ate a lot of pizza, yelled a lot. Boy, I thought it was going to be easy. I thought it was going to be, a bunch of guys that were passionate about hospitality, passionate about, construction, and it took us a day and a half to get everybody to finally open up. Like, really, what did they lose? How much they lost, where they lost it, what they did wrong. Because if you think about a typical project, there's a lot of communication that goes on during a project, and the guys that were now in the room, everybody trying to just bare their soul so everybody could learn and we could document it. It took us a day and a half to get it all out, but we did, and we think a lot of it's repeatable, a lot of it's avoidable, a lot of it's common sense stuff. So that's what one of the things we came away from was building a tool for developers that they could basically go to the moment they have an opportunity, they found a piece of land, hey, is this a modular project or not? And do a quick evaluation that'll steer them in the right direction. We've got 4 different versions of it flying around. We've just got to kind of land on the right sweet spot and get it published. But one of the interesting ones that came out of that was that you probably wouldn't, not being in the modular side of the business, we absolutely didn't think about, and that is the crane set. You know, there are some projects that flat out can't, you can't do modular because there's no place to put a crane, or the crane cost would be astronomical because you got to go to a tower crane versus a regular truck crane. So I learned a lot. Excuse me. I think I'm running out of time here, but commitment, open source, talked about all across disciplines. What's next for our program? A lot of this I probably already talked about as well. The additional building types. You know, I've really been listening hard to the last day and a half here about CLT. Can't wait to learn more about it. I think there's absolutely some opportunity in hospitality for CLT as it grows. Just got to kind of put the pieces and parts in my head a little bit differently, and then we'll take it back and engage and try to figure out how we can work it into at least our hotels. That's it. I'll flash through a couple projects that we did real quick, I think. So this was our first one in Folsom, California from the program perspective. It was a 3-story, built, set in 10 days. Original schedule was probably 14 to 15 months. This is a very experienced owner, builder, operator. He had owned the land for quite some time. Decided to go modular right after we launched our initiative, and he was really the first one out of the chute. We did a stacking event here with the city officials. We set one of the modulars and powered it with the air conditioning, set up all the furniture was already set in the room. Within 20 minutes of setting that module, you walked into a finished room you could sleep in. It made a pretty fantastic statement. Chapel Hill, North Carolina, another fantastic project with a great group, OTO Development. That project, I think, was completed in 11 to 12 months. Original schedule was 16. A quick story about Chapel Hill. Whoever's tried to develop in Chapel Hill, it's a very difficult old town to get approvals on just about anything. Our developer worked closely with the building commission, but they had struggled for 6-8 months, and they were looking at another 6-8 months until they got approval. We launched the initiative. We had a lot of conversations with them. They shifted to modular. They brought the modular solution and the benefits of modular to the town meeting. It was approved in 10 minutes. Once they realized that they weren't going to deal with the framing operation for 2 to 3 months and all the associated construction noise that normally would go through a small old town like that, they really lost all of their argument. And really successful hotel. In fact, this is the one that we did for the lessons learned. This is that Newcrest development project side by side. The AC was modular, the Hyatt in on the backside. Both were started the same week. The AC opened in December and the Hyatt opened in April. And he set up a camera across on another hotel and filmed it, and it's a very interesting video to watch. Couple lessons learned there. It's a high wind area, so some of those projections, those bump outs, that were not part of the modular that they actually had to field build. In retrospect, they should have built them prefab in the similar to panelized construction in the factory, and then shipped those to the site and just bolted them on. So that probably added a month before they really got the exterior buttoned up. And of course, it's called Bricktown, and just kind of sign of the times. They're in Bricktown. They have brick, no bricklayers. And mainly because if you look at the buildings around and on the opposite side of this picture, everything is in brick and every brickie was busy. no brickie just wanted to do that little bit of scope on the front of the building. So great project. Louisville, Kentucky, 12-month turnaround. Original 16-month schedule. They wanted to make the Derby. There was a lot of internal bets about whether they'd make the Derby. And for those who are in the hospitality industry and might know Concord well, Mark Laporte, President, CEO, founder of Concord, is an absolute convert to modular now. In fact, he has some initiatives out with his team, some guys I've worked with for a long time to make sure that every single project that they do moving forward, which they probably got 10 or 12 in their pipeline right now that are just in design and another 4 or 5 that are in construction, must be looked at modular. And if it can work, even if it gets close, I want to do modular. So beautiful hotel. If you get to any of these towns, highly recommend them. And then there's that Hawthorne project that was in the video, 350 keys. This one's our game changer. Michael said his office building was a game changer. This is going to be our game changer, and we hope it's going to be a game changer for everybody in this room. This is going to be the world's tallest hotel. It's in fabrication right now in Krakow, Poland. That's an old picture. Probably all of the units are actually on the production line right now. It's 130 keys, 140 keys plus or minus. They're all at about 30 to 50% stage. Foundations have just started, a little bit delayed to some asbestos. Architect's Danny Forrester out of New York, guy who is really leading the charge in the modular side from an architecture standpoint. He is a voice in the architecture community that continues to push this modular solution. He completely believes in it, almost to the point where in this particular, the models that were built in the factory over there, we went and saw them. He was pretty adamant he wanted to ship it with the skin, literally with the rain screen panels on it, and the facade on the front end. They've since backed off on that due to stacking inside the ship, and they'll just have them all watertight, and then they'll put the skin when they get to the site. But very exciting project, 3 stories of concrete podium, and then all guest rooms above that, 8 guest rooms per floor. So it's a really small footprint, but going to be a fantastic project. Hopefully by, I'm going to say February, we're going to have a stacking event in New York City, and we'll bring out all our top owners and anybody who's interested to come kick the tires on it and keep it moving. A little bit about my co-lead, Jennifer. She's out in Switzerland sourcing a couple new manufacturers for our global design strategies team. So unfortunately, she couldn't be here. That's it. Thank you.